This week on The Week Ahead, we hear from ALG Counsel Nathan Mehrens on the political atmosphere leading to 2012. Plus, hear about a bill to make public pensions more transparent. Welcome to The Week Ahead. I'm Frank McCaffrey. The political atmosphere in Washington changed due to the 2010 election, and believe it or not, 2012 is just around the corner. That's when Republicans will try to unseat incumbent President Barack Obama. For more on this, we're joined by Americans for Limited Government Counsel Nathan Mehrens. Nathan, where have the Republicans gone wrong over the last 4 to 5 years?
I think the biggest problem has been the stance on spending. Instead of looking at what the government needs to do in order to function, we've looked at things that it can do, and all these wonderful, programs around the edges that need to be funded, so to speak. Instead of funding only what needs to be funded, we've funded a whole bunch of other things. And instead of being the party of fiscal responsibility, Republicans have just kind of gone along with the notion that we'll have a little bit smaller government, but not necessarily the size of government that it should be.
How can Republicans avoid making wrong turns in the next year or so?
I think you got to hold the line on spending. I think that's what the last election was all about. People are really fed up with all the money that we're spending on a whole bunch of different things, and we really, really need to hold that line.
Could you list some of the weaknesses Team Obama will have in the next year or so?
I think first on that list is the size of the debt. It has increased substantially since Obama took office. We spent hundreds of millions of dollars in stimulus money that didn't do anything at all. Even if you believe their own figures, it still amounts to about $250,000 per job created or quote-unquote saved. It's not an effective way of doing anything to stimulate the economy. It's just a complete waste. So that's a big issue. The unemployment situation is terrible. We're at 9% unemployment nationwide. It's the longest streak of unemployment above 9% since World War II. And even that doesn't account for how bad the job market really is out there. There are a number of people that are partially employed that figure doesn't pick up. And if you look at people who are quote-unquote marginally attached to the labor force, the real rate's somewhere between 16 and 20% in some areas. And given the growth in population and changeover in the economy, it's going to take hundreds of thousands of new jobs a year, or a month, before we're going to have the unemployment rate drop down to a level of 5 or 6% where we saw it a few years ago. So that's going to continue to be a real problem for them.
Thank you very much, Nathan. Republican Congressman Devin Nunes of California has been working to make public pensions more transparent. Now, Senators Richard Burr and John Thune have introduced companion legislation. Here now is a recent story we did on public pension transparency. California Congressman Devin Nunes is pushing for transparency in our public pension system.
And Devin Nunes recognizes that the state public pension system is completely broken. It's a house of cards. It's going to fall with over $3 trillion of unfunded liabilities that experts think, but they don't know because the information is not transparent. Congressman Nunes's bill is clearly necessary. It will create transparency so that taxpayers know what the unfunded liabilities really are, and it will also prohibit the Federal Reserve and any other organ of the federal government from bailing out those funds. Clearly, states need to move away from defined benefit systems and into defined contribution, 401k or IRA-style systems, such that beneficiaries are not drawing more in retirement benefits than they ever contributed.
We spoke with Nunes recently about why this bill is so important.
We don't know what's going on in these public employee pensions. Some people estimate that they're unfunded by $2 trillion. I've had folks tell me as high as $15 trillion. I mean, that's so large, it's really not even comprehensible to normal Americans.
The California lawmaker is serious about avoiding having to dish out extra money when extra money is something we don't have.
And what this bill does is essentially says the feds aren't going to come in and bail you out. And two, we need you to be transparent so we know what's happening in these public employee pensions.
Americans for Limited Government is supporting this legislation and asks for your support too.
The American people need to demand transparency and accountability in the public pension system. They also need to demand that the Federal Reserve not engage in bailouts of states and in state pension systems. Therefore, the American people really do need to support Congressman Nunes' bill.
10 states are reportedly on track to run out of pension funds by 2020. And now we take a look at ridiculous spending that goes on in our federal government. This week, we look at a union that supposedly serves public workers. The United Federation of Teachers is a union group that represents educators, many of whom appear to be ready to have their jobs cut. So the group decided to throw a $1.4 million party for their 50th anniversary gala at the New York Hilton. Their spending included over $500,000 in catering, over $6,000 in gift boxes, and, sit down for this, $115,000 in coffee supplies at their 5 offices across New York City. My friends, the high level of caffeine from all that coffee might be what explains that hyper spending. And that's all the time we have for the week ahead. Please join us again next time. For more on these and other topics, visit netrightdaily.com.